Now the Canon R5 and the R6 are phenomenal cameras without a doubt, but they both have their drawbacks. The one major one that I think everybody knows, besides the overheating, which it's really not as bad as people were putting out, is the IBIS wobble. Now I'm recording this video with the IBIS turned off, and as you can see, it's a lot more shaky, but it gets rid of the whole crazy warpiness that you would get if you had the IBIS on. Now I'm not sure if Canon can actually fix the IBIS, but there is something that they can do to at least make it a little bit better. And what that is to allow us to turn the IBIS off without turning the lens stabilization off. Obviously, just having lens stabilization isn't gonna be anything compared to the stabilization of having IBIS. But I think you could still use the IBIS just as long as you're not using it at a wide angle, because you're not gonna really see the warpiness if you're using 35 mil or a 50 mil or anything beyond that. So it's good in that regard. So if you're shooting any B-roll with some more zoomed in lens or a telephoto lens, it's great. But if you're shooting vlogs, it almost gets to the point where the footage is like unusable. And I don't necessarily like shaky footage either. So that's kind of the trade-off. It's like, do I want the warpiness or do I want a shaky camera? Or do I just sell my Canon and go with Sony because they seem to have it right at the moment. And I've tried turning the lens stabilization off, which turns the IBIS off, and turning on the electronic stabilization. But honestly, I don't see any difference between no stabilization and the electronic. If there is, it'd be like the most minute difference. So maybe if you can turn the IBIS off and have the lens stabilization on, including the electronic stabilization on, how you would have it on the EOS R, then maybe that could work. Uh-oh, kids are crying. Give me 1 second. What sucks about the electronic stabilization is it crops in. And like I said, it doesn't really make a difference between no stabilization, at least from my experience. God, this would be really shaky right now. I'm holding it in the most awkward angle. What do you think, Byron? Should I do IBIS or no IBIS? This is the most waves this place has ever gotten. This place is usually just a lake, and now you got some 6-inch swell. Maybe we're all just making excuses for Canon, and Canon can actually fix the IBIS, because that would be the ultimate. I mean, the camera has IBIS. We want to use the IBIS for vlogging, especially. You want it to look stable. If that is the case, I really hope that they can push it out with maybe another firmware update in the future. Hopefully in the near future. Hopefully they're aware of this IBIS wobble. Surely they are. I mean, they made the camera. Of course they'd be aware of it. So let's hope in a future update that they can improve the IBIS. Look at the big boat out there. What do you think, guys? Are they pirates?
Yeah.
Arrgh! Every time there's a storm, there's just jellyfish all over the beach. Jellyfish, jellyfish, jellyfish. Jellyfish, jellyfish. What did you find?
Rubbish.
Why do we pick up rubbish?
Because it hurts animals.
Because it hurts the animals?
Yes.
There you go. Good job, Bubby.
And keep this one.
Raising little green thumbs. Proud to be taking care of our earth and taking part in raising beautiful children that know to clean up all the rubbish on the beach and everywhere. Is that like a stingray or something? You can see like its skeleton at the top. That's crazy. Australia is a bit sketchy. Anytime there's a storm, there's all kinds of weird things that get washed up on the beach. I think one of the last storms we had, this huge, enormous, dead snake washed up on one of the local beaches here. It's like, where did that even come from? Was that like swimming in the ocean, or I don't yeah, I don't know. It's a bit kind of sketchy. Round two. Good job, Bubby. I just thought of a good way that they could handle the IBIS situation. They could treat it like the electronic image stabilization, how it has your normal IS and then it has enhanced. I'll buy it, they suck because they crop in. IBIS could do the same thing, where you have a normal version, which is like the IBIS, it's still there, but it's not as strong. And then you could have the enhanced version, how the IBIS is now. So you may get those wobbles on a wide angle lens, but you know, with those more zoomed in lens, you'll get that really good stabilization. In fact, I hope they do that. I hope they do that. It's hilarious. All the birds in the sky are just like flying in one spot because the wind is so strong. That'd be really annoying to be a bird when it's windy. He looks like he's just contemplating life, cruising around. Look at you with your hands in your pocket. You're a little cool dude. I like the greens. Beautiful. I feel like the sign of a good color grade is to look at the greens. If the greens look off, then everything looks off. Our eyes recognize greens probably the most. That's probably the best way to decipher whether a shot looks natural or not. I feel like if they cannot fix the IBIS, like it's not possible, they can't do it, at least just let us be able to turn the IBIS off and use the lens stabilization. Let us get a little bit of stabilization, please. Okay, so here's my solution to everybody that has an R5 and R6 and just hate the IBIS wobble, especially for vlogging. I recommend just turning the IBIS off. So how to do that would be to turn your lens stabilization off. If your lens doesn't have if your lens doesn't have image stable, oh my gosh, my tongue is tired right now. If your lens doesn't have image stabilization built into it, then you go into the menus and then you can actually turn IBIS off in the menus. However, that option isn't there when you put a lens on the camera that has image stabilization. Hopefully that made sense. So turn the IBIS off and then switch between shots of you holding the camera, walking around, and static shots where you put your camera on a tripod or on a bench or something, so that you give the audience a bit of a break from all the shakiness and it just is a nice static shot. The diversity of shots makes it a whole lot more bearable to watch, and you know, it just gives the audience a break from all the shakiness. And then you don't gotta use that IBIS and don't gotta rely on that wobble. Now, when I did use the IBIS, I still used kind of the same technique. I would walk around with the IBIS wobble, and then some shots I would just put the camera down so you didn't get any of that wobble. So it's whatever you prefer. If you prefer a little bit more shaky camera or the wobbles. A lot of people seem to really just not like the wobbles, so this is me offering the best solution, at least at the moment.